Welcome to A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. I'm Evan J. Chalfin from Lexhammer, where we help the brands to help you live healthier. Today, I'm joined by Jenna Mons Anderson, CEO of KiHealth, who's revolutionizing preventative healthcare through innovative at-home diagnostic testing. Her company is launching the world's first blood test capable of identifying diabetes risk before symptoms emerge. Jenna, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Evan.
So, what inspired the creation of Key Health? What gap did you see in the preventative health space?
Such a good question. So, I have had the pleasure of working in healthcare for about 18 years. I've worked on all sides of the industry, from working on products, developments, devices. But what I really figured out about 10 years ago was all of the money, the emphasis, the resources were going to treating disease. But we were completely missing the mark and opportunity to prevent disease in the first place. If you look at it, we have a $1 billion industry that's essentially keeping people sick because it's not geared to telling you how to be well. And my prior venture, I worked within, large organizations and employers, giving people the tools and resources to optimize their wellness. But I realized we were really missing a key aspect of that, which is how do I know which supplements to take or, what diet to be on or what type of exercising or fasting I should be doing if I don't know what's going on in my body? If you don't ask the question, I've asked many women and men to pique their interest. I'm like, okay, what supplements are you taking? And there's usually a battery of ones they're on. And I ask them, okay, are they working? Do you know if you need them? Do you know why you need them? Resoundingly over and over in time, the answer is I don't know because I frankly don't know what's going on in my body. And we really set out on a mission to develop diagnostics that are focused on preventing disease, that are focused on looking at the root cause of where disease actually starts. The name of the company, Key KI, actually means the source within. It's diving deep into what's going on in your body and telling you how to actually optimize your health to stave off disease. Our first product, which we just launched, is the first test that can actually measure the rate at which your beta cells are dying. And I know you're probably thinking, what is a beta cell? That was something I asked myself early on. But beta cells essentially are in your pancreas. The pancreas is crucial to our survival, but the beta cells determine how we uptake insulin, our ability to process sugar, essentially. So as you live, they die, you recreate them, but you don't have an infinite amount of them. And in most cases, by the time if you were to get diabetes, you'd be diagnosed with diabetes, over half of them would be gone and you're never getting them back. There's no reversing that. What we're able to do is measure for the first time the rate at which your beta cells are dying, which is the earliest indicator of metabolic dysregulation. It means your body is going down a path to developing diabetes, to being metabolically dysregulated, which means you're not optimizing energy. It impacts your hormone levels, but it also puts you at risk for Alzheimer's. What many people don't realize is if you develop diabetes before the age of 60, the risk of you getting Alzheimer's doubles. So understanding how metabolically healthy you are is crucial to your short-term and your long-term success. And it gives you kind of the keys to be in the driver's seat of your health.
Wow, that's really incredible. So, you're focused on democratizing advanced health insights through retail channels, I understand. So, how are you approaching this transformation?
Another good point. So the other big aha I've had working in this industry is that, first of all, people are not testing their body. But the main reason they're not doing that is because they either don't know about it, they don't have a doctor that's running that test, they can't access it, or they can't afford it. So it makes it really hard. You may be like, yes, I want to go test my metabolic health. Well, where do you go? How do you even go about doing that? Half of the US population today doesn't have a primary care doctor. So already half of them don't even have the resource of a physician to ask for tests like ours. Um, and then if you're in that subset and you want to go and get a test, it's expensive, hundreds, thousands of dollars sometimes. And so our goal was make it so that anybody anywhere can know what's going on internally in their body. And we're working on an entire line of products, but they can do it at an affordable price point. So our goal is to have every test under $200, to all be FSA and HSA eligible, which they are, and also eventually to convince major payers that they should cover them. Because if you help people optimize their health, while they're well, they're not going to get sick. And that is a huge cost savings over time because dollars and cents matter to major payers. But what matters to us is that people generally feel good. I talk to people a lot about, we all heard the old adage, let's age gracefully. But, really what we talk about is let's age gratefully. Let's wake up every day and be like, wow, I feel really good. I'll turn 43 this year. And so I'm definitely in that women age, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. And I tell my friends regularly, you shouldn't feel bad. None of us should wake up and feel bad. I shouldn't feel tired. I shouldn't feel like I'm running low. My tank is, on empty by 5 o'clock. But I think we're pre-programmed to think that's normal, that that's just tired. It's just life. And we are really setting out to tell people that isn't the case. You can reframe how you live, how you feel, but it starts with knowing what's going on. Looking, under the hood. It's like, hey, diagnose what's wrong with that car, but don't open the doors and don't look under the hood. Good luck. And that's really where we come in.
Yeah, that's really important. So, who benefits most from KiHealth's testing solutions? Who's your ideal customer?
We really have three customer subsets when you look at the market. The most important customer to me is the consumer. Obviously, I'm a consumer. I have personal stories of how diagnostic solutions have transformed my health, my family's health. The second customer is the physician. We really want to arm the physician with more tools and resources to provide better care to patients, to know what's going on earlier. And diagnostics, we feel, are a crucial key to kind of solving the puzzle or the problem in that physician-patient experience. And then the third customer subset are major manufacturers that are currently developing therapeutics, drugs, products that would benefit from being able to understand the implications of those drugs on somebody's beta cell health and function, and also identify patients earlier in the spectrum. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Our test will be the first direct measure of identifying type 1 diabetes early. So right now, the only way to determine if somebody has type 1 diabetes before they're symptomatic is with an autoantibody test. But an autoantibody test is an indirect measure. It's looking at the propensity that they likely have beta cells dying. We actually tell you, you do have beta cells dying or you don't. So for a company that's looking to develop therapies that would intervene earlier and potentially cure or prevent onset, cure's a naughty word in healthcare, but ideally cure disease or prevent onset, tests would be absolutely crucial for that development process. And there are a multitude of drugs in development where we feel we can play a very strong role in progressing that research.
Oh, that's really incredible. What's been your biggest challenge in bringing testing to the consumer market?
So many challenges as a startup. I think early on, our biggest challenges were honestly personnel. We work in very high science. There are not very many people that understand droplet digital PCR process from a micromolecular biology perspective. So finding the right people that could help us move our research forward was crucial in the early days. I think as we move into the commercial setting, you're really running into a few roadblocks. One, payers are challenging. If in a perfect world, post FDA approval, which we're submitting to the FDA for one of our indications this year, major payers would see the benefit and go, yes, I want to cover that product. It's amazing, provides a lot of value. It's very cost effective. But most major payers don't even have a category for preventive diagnostics. In fact, I haven't met one yet that does. So it's, they are not used to covering diagnostics that tell you you're going to get sick. They're used to two categories of diagnostics. One, think COVID, flu, strep, your basic ones that say you are or you weren't sick. So they're diagnostic in nature of a specific condition. Or a companion diagnostic, which is a very narrowly focused diagnostic test. We believe in national screening. If you have a test that can essentially prevent a child from ever experiencing DKA, from ever being extremely sick, from identifying disease early so that they can be treated with an approved therapeutic that would delay onset for years, wouldn't you want to do that? But that's not necessarily the way the government and the payers are situated today. Another major challenge is this, that doctors on average have, less than 7 minutes with a patient. You've probably experienced that when you've gone to see a doctor. You go in, it's like they're running through their checklist as quickly as possible. You kind of feel a bit like you're being herded in and out. And it's not the physician's fault. It's the way the system is structured. They have to see a certain number of patients per day. It doesn't leave a lot of room for talking about maintaining wellness or pushing prevention or for novel new tests that could be biomarkers to identify disease. You're shifting the care paradigm, and that takes time. So those are all challenges that we are up against. And I would say the third one is, diagnostics are a new category. I think the when you think about it, preventive diagnostics or longevity diagnostics. So there's a lot of interest. If you go on to Amazon, you'll see that. You go into local pharmacies, they're starting to carry those tests. I think COVID really paved the way for consumer driven testing. And I think the new administration is pushing that from a preventatively focused perspective, but it's still new. It's a newer category. I'm not coming into a market that's been substantiated for 50 years and coming in as the 100th product. I'm essentially building a market. When I attended NACDS, which is sort of the largest pharmacy show, and I walked the show floor and I used the terminology preventive diagnostics or longevity diagnostics, there wasn't a single product on the floor. The only diagnostics on the floor were what I had stated, which is going to be, colon cancer, Cologuard, anything for STDs, flu, pregnancy, or COVID. That is kind of the market as it exists today.
Yeah. And how do you address, two-part question, how do you address the doctor challenge and the new category challenge?
Well, yeah, I think that when you look at the doctor challenge, the physician market is rapidly evolving and rapidly evolving to some degree in our favor. New rules are being passed on a regular basis. A rule just passed in Texas, a law just passed in Texas, where they're now allowing physicians into the state of Texas that did not complete residency because the shortage of doctors is so, which means that you're potentially going to have more physicians that have more time to see patients, which then allow more education. But I think with the doctors, where we're focusing, which is kind of the lowest hanging fruit for us, is in two categories. The membership model, which has been growing pretty rapidly. Think One Medical as an example, but there's quite a few companies that have, membership-based primary care where they spend more time, they're more focused on prevention, they want to have a broader offering for their consumers. And the second is concierge medicine. So more functional, integrative doctors that are focused on treating the full patient, not just the symptom for why they walked in the door. They're a beautiful fit for us because we're giving you a lens into your future health. And I think doctors in those arenas get excited about that. So we're really focusing in those areas right now. We're not trying to convince every primary care doctor in the US to start carrying our product and recommending our product. On the consumer landscape front, we've really been quite broad with our approach. So we're distributed in local pharmacies because that's part of our mandate. We want to be accessible. We're definitely capitalizing on the buzz around diagnostics, and our sales on Amazon are, we're up 200% from our first month of launch because the demand is definitely there. And we're taking a grassroots advocacy approach as well in how we talk to the consumer and really ensure we're providing value. When you take our tests, you're not getting a pass fail report. It's not like a one pager. It's a 20-page report about optimizing your health. We're providing value. You can talk to a doctor. We're going to track your health over time. So we're really there for the customer. And this is just the beginning of what we plan to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So what aspects of consumer education need the most attention right now?
Oh my goodness, a lot. So even when we came to naming our test, when you think, I'd actually ask you this question because I find the answer fascinating. There's no wrong answer. But when you think metabolic, what comes to mind when I tell you, if I said I have a metabolic health test, what would you think I'm looking at?
Well, I mean, I would think my overall, metabolism, is what I think of.
And you are like 90% of consumers. So there's been this association of metabolic health equals metabolism, which is basically you're going to tell me with a metabolic health test how I metabolize food. How many calories I can eat, that type of a response. But really, what metabolic health is completely different. So your metabolic health is essentially how well you are processing sugar. Sugar is a calorie, but it's not all calories. So it's telling me metabolically, how well do you process sugar? How do you regulate insulin? How is your pancreas and your beta cells performing? That's your metabolic health. But that's not what the everyday person thinks. And I didn't think that either. So you're in good company. We think metabolism. I think food intake out, what can I eat? So a lot of it is also just reframing, like, what is your metabolic health? Because all of us can get value out of a metabolic health test to tell us how we are processing sugar, because it's crucial to every function in our body. 90% of the US population is metabolically dysregulated. We are not optimized. But if I were to tell you, hey, you're not optimized, your metabolic health is crucial to how everything functions in your body, you would want to know about that. But when people think about sugar and beta cells, they think diabetes. So they opt out because they're like, well, I don't have diabetes. I don't have a family history of diabetes, but you may still be metabolically dysregulated. And so I think a lot of this is around education of why metabolic health matters, how it's more than just diabetes, although diabetes is really important to stave off. But even if you don't get diabetes, you could still be metabolically dysregulated. You could not be optimized. And you may be feeling that all the time and not know why. So it's really around telling people, I tell people there are only three things that matter to general health. Assuming you don't get hit by a car, nothing catastrophic happens, there are three things that you want to be in the driver's seat with. You need to be metabolically regulated, you need to have low inflammation, and you need to have a healthy gut. If all three of those things are working in your favor, you're likely to be healthy. So that's really how we're trying to reframe the conversation. It's why we actually carry a gut health test as well, even though it's not our core technology. It's the most comprehensive gut health test on the market. And we will carry an inflammation test, likely in the next 6 to 12 months, because we want to talk to people about optimizing their health and using diagnostics as the framework or the blueprint to getting there. But even nomenclature is a challenge because, to your point, you think metabolic health, you think metabolism. And so we've struggled to even communicate the value through the name to make sure that people know what it is that we do.
Well, I think that's a great shift to make. So, what do you think makes it difficult to raise awareness in general about the company and your products?
Oh, goodness, TikTok and Instagram. I think we as a culture are inundated with fad products. Not to call you out, but again, have you bought a product you saw on Instagram or TikTok that you thought was going to make you feel better? Most people have. There's a lot of scammy products out there. They promote, we're going to give you twice as much energy with one pill a day, or we're going to give you 5 more years of life, or you're going to look 10 years younger. So it's breaking through the noise and being able to actually showcase that what we're saying is accurate. We are a legitimate test. We are a CLIA approved test. We have hard science behind it. We are doing something nobody's ever been able to do, but customers are naturally skeptical, as they should be. I also think coming off of COVID, people are naturally skeptical. They don't know who to trust when it comes to healthcare and what to think. And so we really have to break through the noise there, and showcase ourselves as a leader and substantiate our value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really key to be able to differentiate yourself, amongst all that. There's so much snake oil out there.
There is, but I mean, there's snake oil even on the diagnostics front. I hate to say it, but you'll go out there and you'll be like, oh, take this microbiome test. It's going to tell you everything you need to optimize your gut. And it's not. Um, if you're taking a gut health test that isn't looking at all known bacteria and parasites, you're missing 80% of the problem. And I don't know very many tests that do. In fact, I don't know one that does other than ours. So it's really educating, raising awareness, reframing the conversation. Diagnostics have not historically been sexy. Usually, if you're like, oh, I have to take a test, it's going to tell me I'm sick. It's dread. Who wants to go and give blood and find out something bad about themselves? Is really diagnostics should be what keeps you well. We take better care of our animals and our vehicles than we do of ourselves. And that's, you take your car for a regular oil change, but you look under the hood when things don't go right, but you don't necessarily do that with your own health.
Yeah. Well, just even the challenge to reframe that conversation, is something that you're up against a big amount of inertia, I think. It's kudos to you for diving in the deep end on that one.
Yeah, it's not easy. In general, people want to put their heads in the sand. I do think that not all people, and I don't want to frame that in a negative light, but I talk to people sometimes and I say, if I could tell you that you were going to develop Alzheimer's, would you want to know? And honestly, it's 50-50. Some of them are like, yes, tell me right away. Some of them are like, yeah, I'm just going to see what happens. But if I reframed it and said, if I could tell you you were going to develop Alzheimer's, if you didn't change something in your lifestyle, would you want to know? Then it's 100%. So I think a lot of this is also like we used to think that your genetics were your genetics. Like if your dad had a bad hip, you were going to have a bad hip. If, it was predestined, you couldn't change it. It was what it was. But science has actually told us that's completely untrue. Genetics don't really matter. Epigenetics matter. Genetics give you something to work with, but the environment determines whether or not you manifest that issue or that disease. And so really what we try to tell people is we're giving you information for things that you can prevent. Nothing we're telling you is predestined. We see that in everything we do in diabetes. When we're working on pancreatic cancer, we're looking at stage 1 and stage 2. That's our area of focus. We want to identify it earlier so you actually have an opportunity to change course and improve the survival. And with Alzheimer's, I say this and I don't mean it in jest, but I'll never get Alzheimer's. I can say that confidently because I know what causes it. And so I am tracking all of those biomarkers that cause Alzheimer's to ensure I never get it. And I just hope that people start to open their eyes to the fact that you can actually control those things.
Yeah, can you give us a hint on some of those biomarkers?
Well, they fall into the same three I told you before. Most of the science supports, they call metabolic dysregulation type 3 diabetes. Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. So, and it's been proven by multiple studies that if you have diabetes before the age of 60, your risk of getting Alzheimer's doubles. So you need to be metabolically regulated. We know that long-term gut dysbiosis, SIBO, all of these issues within your gut do contribute to the development of Alzheimer's. And we also know that long-term inflammation that goes untreated and unchecked also contributes to Alzheimer's. So those are the three major contributors. If you know that all three of those are going well, your health is going to be optimized and you're unlikely to develop disease. But the problem is, Evan, most people aren't even looking. They're not even keeping track of those things. I test my gut every 6 months because I travel, I eat sushi, I eat foods. I laugh. If you lived in other countries than the US, most people there test their gut. They realize their food isn't as clean as they think. In the US, we have like wool over our eyes. It's all so clean. It's made in a clean kitchen. There's no bacteria. There's no parasites. That's not true. So you should be testing your gut so that you know that that stuff isn't going on. And then I do blood work for my hormones and my inflammation, especially being in my 40s. That's happening every 6 months too. So I know exactly how my body's progressing. And if something isn't right, I can intervene and change course. And I also test my kids. I use this story, but the whole reason I got on the gut health track was my youngest daughter, when she was a toddler, developed eczema all over her whole body. And we took her everywhere. I think I took her to almost 8 doctors trying to figure out like how to get the eczema. I mean, her face was so inflamed, like people would stop and look at her. It was pretty bad. And everybody kept going. She said, steroid, steroid, steroid. And I'm like, I really don't want to I'm not comfortable putting my toddler on long-term steroids. Finally found a doctor and she said, have we tested her gut? And I was like, I've tried everything. Let's test her gut. It turned out she had a parasite. She probably picked it up when we were in Mexico on vacation, babies, hands in the water. And we treated the parasite in 6 days with an antiparasitic. We then started to heal her gut. I am not joking. Within 3 weeks, the eczema was completely gone. And she's never had eczema since. So I use that as an example of we were looking at the wrong thing. We were looking at the skin. We weren't looking inside. And so if you do have muscle aches, if you do have eczema, if you do have chronic inflammation, if you do have, you're chronically tired, look inside, see what's going on, because you could be looking in the wrong place. The skin is it's your largest organ. It's where things come out. It's like a warning sign because you can't see inside your gut. So that was very eye-opening to me and really had me rethink and shift, and it's a contributor to why I'm doing this now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a really smart way of looking at it. So, what are your main expansion targets for this year?
Oh, goodness, we have lots. My goal is to be available in all states this year, but New York and New Jersey. New York and New Jersey have unique regulations around lab derived tests. So you have to kind of jump over a few more hurdles. We will be available in all states probably within the next 60 days. So any state would be able to purchase our kit on a shelf or online. We are increasing our distribution. So we're continually adding on new distributors so that you can access this test. We also will begin distributing direct to doctors through two major distributors in the next 90 days. Again, so that anybody anywhere can walk in outside of New York and New Jersey and buy our test and get those results within 7 days. We do have plans for OUS expansion. That probably won't happen though until mid 2026. And we have ongoing trials in pancreatic cancer. We hope to have a readout on those results by Q1 of 2026. So we're expanding our current technology and then continuing to build on our follow on technology.
Great. So, how do you see the relationship between consumers and their health data evolving over time?
In a big way. When I first started out in healthcare, I think they called it like Health 2.0. This ages me. I laugh. I started work when there was no Facebook, so I'm already old. But one of the biggest challenges in healthcare when it comes to data is that it's disparate. So you first of all you have a multitude of platforms for electronic medical records. So it's not all centralized. They don't all operate the same. It's why, if you go to one doctor and you're like, "Hey, send my records over to that other doctor," they're like, "Come pick out a printout, walk them over and hand them in." Pretty archaic. The other challenge is as a consumer, I don't own my data, which seems completely backwards. It's my healthcare, it's my information. Ideally, my healthcare record would sit on my phone. This has been an idea for 20 years. I didn't come up with it. And I would own all my healthcare data. Every doctor I saw, that would go into my healthcare record that's out on my device. But everybody wants to own the data, so they make it complicated and really hard to get that data into your device and to own that data. We feel very different about that. I truly believe you should own your data. You should be able to even monetize your data. And with crypto and where it's going, you can tokenize your data if you wanted to. It's yours. So when we are tracking your health over time and showcasing those shifts and changes and getting into the ability to improve our predictive capabilities, today we're telling you a risk score. We're saying, hey, based upon what we have analyzed of your beta cell function and apoptosis, your risk score is this. As we increase the data inputs, we'll be able to improve upon that and actually say, hey, Evan, based upon your scores, if you don't change something, you will develop diabetes within 2 years. And then as that data improves, we'll be able to say you'll develop, diabetes within 470 days. But based upon your profile, if you do these interventions, which we've seen succeed for your challenges and your makeup, then you will delay onset by years. So data helps us make more powerful recommendations, and that data lives with you as the consumer. But, everybody wants to use AI. It's brilliant. I love it. I'm on all the platforms. But AI is only as good as the data it has. So, the more data that we have and the more that we learn about those customers. So, Evan, as you take our test 4, 5, 6 times, and we see how you progress health wise and which interventions are most effective, our data set gets better. Therefore, our AI recommendations get more intelligent or better. I don't like to call artificial intelligence smart, but the outputs get better. So we're a big believer in data. Data is what's going to drive recommendations. It's what enables us to offer personalized recommendations. Your data should live with you, as should all data. Ideally, our app would integrate with a centralized health record, which would pour that data in there. And I think that's coming. And we'll be excited to participate in that. But we are continually evolving our data set, our modeling. We have a great AI team. Because when you're in the predictive game, you need to continually improve your predictive capabilities.
Definitely. Wow, I have so many more questions to ask, but we'll be wrapping up soon. So if we have this conversation in 12 months, what achievements would make you feel it's been a successful year?
Gosh, three major achievements. One, that we have substantive distribution across the country to the point where anybody anywhere outside of New York and New Jersey within a 10-mile radius can buy our kit. That to me is a win. The idea is that we make it easy. The second is that we are participating with a major manufacturer to move clinical trials for therapeutic advancements forward. And the third is that we got good readouts on our next test, that we can have an impact in identifying pancreatic cancer earlier. Everything in this game is earlier identification. The sooner you know, the better the outcome. And we really are pushing hard towards doing that. And the end goal of everything we're doing here is to have the first Alzheimer's test, and not a test to tell you you have Alzheimer's, but a test to tell you what your risk of developing Alzheimer's is. So that's, coming out in future years, but we'll begin working on that as well. I appreciate, obviously, having the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. We'll have to have a part two, I feel like, just to cover all these great insights that you're providing. Thank you so much. Well, that's it for today's episode of A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. A huge thank you to Jenna Mons Anderson for sharing her insights and the amazing work that Key Health is doing to help people live healthier, happier lives. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit. And if you're a brand or business making an impact in health, wellness, or personal care, we'd love to help you grow. Connect with me at luxhammer.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep making a difference.